Why, hello, you amazing, beautiful people. Welcome back to another solo leveling cut content reaction video. Of course, AniNews is the amazing channel that puts these together, so make sure you subscribe to AniNews, link in the freaking description. This one isn't an episode one. It's not like an entire episode one like we've reacted to in the past. This one, I believe, is simply around the Ant King, like everything around the Ant King in general. I'm guessing there was a lot more information around the Ant King, so it's gonna be kind of interesting to learn a little bit about him, especially considering somehow they managed to turn an ant into sushi, which I didn't even know was possible. So yeah, I guess we'll see. I'm actually really excited about this because it's around the Ant King and it's nearly 20 minutes long. So that sounds like we're gonna get quite a lot of information. Anyway, the last episode of Solo Leveling is of course this Saturday. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel and my main channel so you don't miss any reactions around that finale. And that's about it from me. Alright, I'm gonna stop talking. Let's jump into my first time of reaction to AniNews' brand new Solo Leveling Season 2 extra cut content. How the Ant King became the Ant King.
Here, the final episode of Solo Leveling Season 2. There's a few loose ends that need to be tied up first. There's a bit more to be said with regards to how the Ant King became the king. One final cutscene properly tying up Goto's storyline, then that extra stuff with the serial killer I mentioned a few episodes ago.
Oh,
the latter
there was more
doesn't
around the
really
serial
add much
killer
to the story, but the former two definitely make these last couple of episodes more engaging, I would say. Like, the full extent of Goto as a character wasn't entirely conveyed, and understanding the Ant King's purpose makes his fight with Sung all the more enjoyable. So here's an extra episode of cut content to complement these last few episodes. Let's rewind to 1 year before this Korea-Japan team came to Jeju Island.
Oh!
The Ant Queen was currently going through a crisis since all the life forms which previously served as food was now gone. Her colony, which was now several thousand strong, was, as we saw, resorting to cannibalism in order to feed themselves. This left her and her children one option only, and that was to abandon their current home and seek out a new one. The queen knew she needed to establish a new nation filled with new life forms to feed on. So, if the domination of this island...
It's kind of crazy when you think that it's an ant. it's a fucking ant. And the ant is like, I need new land, I need new food, I need a kingdom. It's like, there's an ant. But damn it, it's one smart-ass ant.
Was her first task, then the expansion of her nation overseas was her next.
Imagine like an ant civil war between the ants from Solo Leveling and the ants from Hunter x Hunter. That'd be crazy. That would be insane.
That's
cool,
when the queen would remember the powerful invaders who stepped on the island 3 times before, leading her to recall the great number of sacrifices she had to make. Though she managed to repel these invaders, the queen wasn't fond of the losses which came as a result. So it was that thought which made her wonder if her children could survive should they encounter those invaders again.
All of this is in the books, like all of the stuff the ant was thinking. This is crazy. And yeah, it's true. The humans are the invaders. That's the ants' island. Why can't the humans just leave them alone? They're all happy. They definitely didn't take over the island, kill everyone on the island, and then, expand and kill more people. They didn't do that.
This led her to the conclusion that she needed powerful soldiers to lead her children, confirming the direction that she had in mind for them. Now she knew for sure exactly how she wanted to evolve them. Fast forward to half a year later, and by gathering the magic power the queen herself possessed, along with the nutrients she absorbed from all her meals, the queen was able to give birth to a new life. She had created what she believed was the greatest weapon she could come up with. One specifically designed to deal with any strong humans it came across. So, it was the queen's determination to create this soldier, combined with its original order of killing all humans it clearly heard in its head, that created the monster which would eventually become the Ant King.
The original
It was a terrifying
okay.
creature born with the iconic skill we all know as gluttony. So, just as how it works in Tensura, by consuming its opponents, this super ant could turn the magic energy and knowledge of those it feeds on into its own. It was a power it came to understand very quickly, and as a result began devouring a lot of its fellow ants. The queen had no problem with such an act taking place, since with its goal and hers being very much aligned, the queen was totally fine sacrificing a few to save the many. So, as this new ant grew stronger day after day, it didn't take long for it to exceed her own power. The queen's other children would also grow into the army she envisioned, and soon enough she knew they'd be ready for that expansion mission.
So she planned on literally having them all leave the island. I mean, it makes sense. It follows the patterns of sending scouts out and checking out different lands and creating a good general. She literally follows all the classic invasion tactics. So, fair fucking enough. The ant going around consuming all the other ants on the island is interesting, though. So when the ant was first born, the king ant, it wasn't that like stronger than the queen, which would imply that if they invaded the island earlier, our boys, our S ranks, they would have actually been able to, like Goto and everybody, would have actually been able to deal with the ant king relatively easily. On the same level as the queen, at least, you know? So not easy, but you know, they would have been able to win. They were like, maybe they wouldn't have suffered any losses. So that ant, the ant king, got that much stronger by the time they arrived. So strong that Goto and everybody, just no chance.
It was before their ranks could be completed, though, that the human invaders would step foot on her island again.
Wait a second, I've just realized something. If Goto is 100% dead, and we presume that the Ant King ate his head, I've only just realized this now. And we saw him use some of his abilities, right? So we can guess that. So does that mean that Jinwoo not only fought the Ant King when the Ant King was at his strongest, but also fought the Ant King after the Ant King consumed Goto's strength? I never realized how crazy that is.
Sure, this time it was a smaller force than usual, but now they were significantly stronger than the last time they came. This was a move the queen could only laugh at, though, since to her this new arrival was the perfect opportunity to test the powers of him. She wouldn't just unleash her newly evolved army, but also the super ant she had created to lead them. Now, it wasn't very surprising this super ant would complete his first mission as easily as expected, but what was the fact that by the time he had returned, the queen had already been defeated by another group of invaders. It was in that moment that the super ant only felt anger, leading him to express said anger on the convenient punching bags that just so happened to be right next to him. He would then kill the self-proclaimed king of the humans, systematically annihilate all of its subordinates, then devour their heads until it would gain the ability to reason. It was once it had gained this ability to think that this super ant began to question its very sense of self. It's unclear whether that message of kill all humans could still be heard, but at the very least it now had a higher level of sentience. So, where before this ant was just a soldier of the queen, now it knew it needed a new identity. The queen was dead and he alone believed himself capable of leading the queendom's remaining soldiers.
Ah, so that's why he ate the head. That's what it's going to lead towards, isn't it? That's at this moment he wasn't king. He just can't wait to become king. I still want to reiterate that point about Jinwoo, right? So, if I want to paint this picture. Let's say Jinwoo went to the island on his own. Before, just on his own. No one else went, just Jinwoo. Hypothetically speaking, Jinwoo could have soloed that whole island, which is an S rank dungeon. And the reason I'm saying this is because when Goto went to that island with the team, the king was at this level of strength, right? Then the king consumed all of those S rank hunters, including Goto. And only at that point, and the queen, by the way, only at that point, after consuming all of them, getting even stronger, taking all of their strength, all of those S ranks and Goto, then fought Jinwoo. And Jinwoo still won. And he won pretty well. Like, it wasn't crazy close. So with that logic, if Jinwoo went to the island first, the Ant King would have just been a bug he would have squished. And the queen and everything. Am I wrong in saying that?
It was when the super ant thought about it like that only one word came to his mind which could describe it. To him, the only title befitting him was king. This wasn't an empty, self-proclaimed title either, as not only did this king have an army which would heed its every order, it also killed the supposed king of the enemies he was up against. So, if that wasn't enough to satisfy the requirements to become a king, then the Ant King had no problem proving it other ways. He had zero doubt this title was his alone, and to prove it, he was happy to accept any attempts which would challenge that. Funnily enough, it was shortly after that the Ant King would detect a power far greater than any he'd detected before. Out coming from where his queen was slain was a fierce wave of aura emanating directly from it. It was a level of power this king knew could very well threaten himself. So, as the Ant King thought carefully about who it was this calamitous feeling was coming from, he would venture forward fully intent on challenging another king. he knew whatever he was detecting was clearly not the aura of some regular foot soldier. Now, this isn't the video to talk about the battle which came next, so I'm instead gonna focus.
So that's why he kept asking for king. Kept asking for a king. He wanted to challenge another king.
Focus on what happened with Goto. You see, yes, he was killed as quickly as we saw in the anime, but the shock factor of such an outcome was significantly greater in the manhwa. The reason why that is because until now, Goto was supposed to be built up to be super powerful.
Yeah.
Like, back at the airport, he just...
We've literally heard that Goto was supposed to be... Because I get people like... it's funny, my G.O.T extra audience, all of you guys who sub over here, all of you guys who follow the videos over here, and my main channel, G.O.T Games audience, they don't like fully mix, otherwise the videos over here would do as well as those ones. So when I react to Solo Leveling, I talk about the extra information from the manhwa and like the web novel about Goto trying to become a national level hunter that we know that like that is part of his goal. He was trying like Korea could get this S rank, he could get that rating, and he could become the 6th one in the world. And that was something he wanted to do. And he believed himself to be as strong as the other national hunters. And the way I've looked at it is you have the national hunters. This is how I've sort of worked it out in my head. You have the national hunters, all 5 of them or whatever they're called, and then Goto sits just below them. So he may not match any of them in strength, but if he joined them, he'd just be the weakest out of all of them. That's how I've imagined it. And in terms of like the whole world. So he is an incredibly strong hunter. Like strong enough to be a national level. At least what we've heard from AniNews' videos. But whenever I mention that in the other ones, people always tell me, no, you've misheard. And it's like no, yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's funny. Because when you take that into consideration, it really does just make you realize how insane a lot of this is, especially around Jinwoo.
Goto was supposed to be built up to be super powerful. Like, back at the airport, he described himself as equal to China's #1 hunter Liu, then in the meeting with Chairman Go, we find out his true intention for the raid was to become a national level hunter.
See, there we go.
This implies his power is already up there with the national level hunters, which for context is leagues above what S ranks are now.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a possibility that a couple national level hunters are currently stronger than Sung. So, this entire time we're led to believe Goto is at that level too, up until 2 very specific moments. The first is during his fight with Sung, where at the end we're shown Sung instilled the fear of death into him. If Goto truly was at the national level, then the fight here would have been a lot more even.
Oh.
There is the chance Sung at this point is stronger than the national level though, so as a reader it's not unlikely to consider this an exception.
Okay.
Where our expectations...
So we have 2 different variables here, or different outcomes to this situation. We literally either have freaking Sung Jinwoo is national level hunter, and he's up there, and that's why he was like he's just way stronger than a national level hunter. He's just crazy strong, and that's why this fight wasn't close. Or Goto is puffing his chest more than he should.
For Goto are completely reset are here in a cutscene involving the comments of this captain. You see, this is a high-ranking officer within the Chinese Navy. He's currently captaining one of the ships right outside the waters of Jeju Island, watching closely the raid going on with Japan and Korea. For someone as experienced as him, he knew right away why it was Japan was participating in this raid. It was abundantly clear that Japan wanted to make Goto a national level hunter, a title which required the completion of an S-rank gate. This was a goal the captain knew Goto could never achieve, since even if he did complete the gate, the captain stated Goto's power still wouldn't even be close to Liu's. As much as Goto wanted to think he was, and as much as the manhwa and novel tried to portray it as such, it's here we find out Goto doesn't even come close to a national level hunter. So this narrative in which Goto constantly touted himself as being uber strong was now being dismantled by someone who knew the power of a true national level hunter. As someone who's seen their power firsthand, it was clear as day to the captain that Goto still had a long way to go.
I like that. I like that a lot, because at this moment in time, we have Jinwoo, who is just a god amongst everyone on this freaking planet, right? And he just makes everyone look easy. We haven't seen him have a hard fight nearly all of Season 2, really. He's had some tougher ones, but let's just say he's soloed everybody pretty easily. And what you need to remember as well, his fight against the Ant King, he didn't even use any of his shadows. None. Not one fucking shadow. He literally 1v1'd him which is insane because a lot of Jinwoo's strength comes from his shadows, which is nuts when you think about it, right? That's even more wild. So when you think about that, and then you think about the other national level hunters, that's very exciting, and it's a bit sad that they didn't include something like that, because that does like make me wonder if the national level hunters are like just crazy strong Jinwoo level, if stronger, which would be cool to see someone who Jinwoo goes, shit, this guy could take me out. We haven't had a conversation like that since he met Chairman Go, and that changed quickly.
So, this is a scene I found to be pretty impactful since
I
it directly precedes Goto's fight with the Ant King. Here we would have thought Goto would at least give the Ant King a run for his money, but with the captain resetting our expectations for him, it makes us so much more uncertain about it. We start to think maybe he wasn't as powerful as we initially thought. Combine that with the ominous fact Japan's S ranks were dropping like flies, and what you get is the straight-up execution of Goto at the hands of the Ant King. It's a shocking outcome considering all we were led to believe before it. Now, if you're wondering why Goto called himself the king in the first place, well, that was an answer that stemmed from Japan's true plans for Korea. If you watched this extra cut content here, you'd know in the novel Matsumoto intended to build an empire. He planned to eliminate Korea's S ranks via the Jeju Island raid, then—
It's very weird how the anime took a direction where it decided to not even mention like Goto and S rank and all this sort of stuff and national level hunter, because when Goto dies, the chairman or whoever this guy is in Japan, he just did not give a fuck. He's like, Goto died, man. It's like, that's your strongest hunter in your entire country. You should be a little bit more like maybe punch a desk and throw something out a window, you know?
And intended to move in with his own and take this weakened Korea over. It was the first step towards building a massive empire for himself. Goto was Matsumoto's right-hand man, and as the powerful leader spearheading Matsumoto's efforts, Goto fully believed himself to be the only viable person to assume Matsumoto's throne. So when the Ant King came asking if he was the king, Goto's hubris couldn't help but agree with him. What happened next was the same mistake Goto made just a few days ago, since what he assumed was the Ant King's full power was actually just the smallest tip of the iceberg. The moment Goto revealed he was the king, the Ant King went to unleash its true power. It had unveiled an aura Goto had only sensed once before. It was an aura of death he unfortunately wouldn't be so lucky as to evade this time. I personally found it strange the anime decided to make that connection, since everything which would have given context to it wasn't included at all. We never got to see that feeling of death from his fight with Sung, and we definitely didn't see him struggle with the trauma of it after. So for the anime to show that feeling yet not have any context before it, well, it kinda cheapens the reveal that this ant from Goto's perspective is as powerful as Sung. Either way,
I disagree. I disagree on that because I didn't notice that on my first watch through. I feel like the anime included that for manhwa readers. That would be my guess here. And I'm sure some of you might disagree, but that's what it felt like. As an anime-only viewer, I didn't fully get that connection, and even if there was like a hint of it, it made it more cool, like, oh, shit. Because up until that moment, similar to the guy on the ship, which is interesting because the guy on the ship, like, dumbing, like, changing... But it seems like a contradictory statement here. Because when the guy on the ship said that Goto isn't as strong as national level hunter, immediately you're like, oh, maybe he won't win that fight. But then when we see the flame of Jinwoo there, we're like, oh, maybe Jinwoo could win that fight. Those are two exactly the same kind of emotions, but one is liked and one isn't liked. Seems a bit odd. For me personally, I don't think that connection was strongly made, and I feel like it was a little Easter egg for the manhwa readers, but maybe I'm wrong.
This was one of the many points reiterating the fact the Ant King and Sung were very much alike. Cha stated it herself last episode, mentioning how fighting the ant would be like fighting Sung. So, with Goto reaffirming that notion too, it creates the idea that Sung versus the Ant King is almost like Sung fighting himself. Now, there were a couple scenes left out regarding Sung before the raid, but considering how it deals with his guild and the operations within said guild, it's likely to be in the first few episodes of Season 3. They're not that big of a deal to know right now, but for the purists out there, feel free to skip ahead to here. That's where I'll start talking about the whole left-out serial killer plotline.
Okay, I'm gonna skip ahead. I like just being as spoiler-free as possible, because I really am just an anime-only viewer, and I really do just enjoy like not having any spoilers. So if you guys want to watch that part, I'll leave a link to AniNews' video in the description. You can go watch it for yourselves.
It was after this that Sung would get a ping from one of his shadows, bringing us to his encounter with the serial killer. If you remember how I mentioned in one of my previous videos, a killer on the loose was actually one of the reasons Sung instituted a neighborhood watch in the first place. His neighborhood was dark and had a lot of secluded alleyways, so it really wasn't the safest environment for Jinna to walk home at night in. So, just as Sung had suspected, it wasn't long before a young college student was about to fall prey to that killer. The novel actually presents the encounter from her perspective, starting with the uncomfortable moments when she first realized she was being followed. A short game of cat and mouse would then proceed after, then when the killer eventually decided to make his move, he would pull a knife then force the girl into one of those secluded alleyways I was talking about. Here there were no cameras at all, which was the core reason the killer preferred this neighborhood so much. The risk presented to him was for the most part minimal. At least that was until Sung's patrol came around. So,
a very nice minimal risk. Minimal. Hopefully there's no godlike humans with demon freaking shadow armies lurking. Oh no, there is one. There's one, yep.
It was right as the killer was about to strike that Sung would catch his knife barehanded. The lack of blood should have been enough to show the killer the type of person he was dealing with, but for some reason that conclusion just evaded him. He'd even tried to pull the knife away with all his might, but despite the knife not budging at all, the killer somehow just didn't get it. He would simply abandon the knife then run to the vacant lot that he normally used as his killing ground. It was here the killer would launch a successful sneak attack, not because Sung was caught off guard, but rather because Sung didn't see the need to dodge it. So, what the killer thought was a direct hit to Sung's chest, instead turned out to be yet another absurd display of physical durability. Now, had the killer been able to sense magical energy, then he would have known why his weapons didn't do anything. Once again though, the word hunter completely evaded him. It was then that Sung would ask why the killer was doing this, simply out of curiosity to know his motivations. It was a question that went to change.
To be honest, this is literally the question everyone asks serial killers. All these like interviewers, all these people, all these like if you've ever seen a show called Mindhunter, which by the way, if you haven't, fucking amazing show. For some reason you're watching this and you're a huge fan of like crime documentaries, crime movies, or anything like that, and you haven't seen the TV show on Netflix called Mindhunter, telling you right now, change it. One of the greatest shows ever. Is very, 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 very good. But yeah, like trying to find the inner workings of the mind of a serial killer, why they do what they do, and the motivations behind it. It's eluded a lot of people for a long time.
Simply out of curiosity to know his motivations. It was a question that went to change the killer's perception of him, since where before he believed Sung to be this weird vigilante patrolling the streets, now he was getting the feeling that perhaps he was someone just like him. He began to think perhaps Sung was a madman with whom he might be able to form some type of understanding with. So, in a wild gamble that aligned with his thoughts, the killer decided to answer Sung's question honestly. He said the reason he did what he did was because it was fun. He couldn't explain why beyond that, but what he did know was that for some reason whenever he saw someone weaker than himself, he just wanted to go and torment them. That was all Sung needed to hear, as before the killer could go on to say any more, Sung would slice open the tendons on both his legs. Though he felt he could somewhat relate to what the killer was saying, that didn't stop him from dishing out retribution. So, with the killer immobilized and going nowhere, Sung would take his phone, call 911, then tell the killer to hand himself in by midnight. Should he choose not to, then the orc placed in his shadow was ordered to kill him. Sung honestly wasn't sure whether the orc could be that patient, but he hoped the killer would live so that he could at least repent for his sins for the rest of his life.
That's really funny.
Sung would then leave.
I love that Sung is like, the orc might just kill you anyway. Like, we don't really know. Don't kill him till midnight. The orc's like, mm-hmm. And Sung's just looking at him like, he's just gonna kill him when I leave, man.
Completely satisfied, not because he saved a girl from being killed,
really
but
funny.
rather because Shadow Exchange had showed its effectiveness yet again. The skill was proving its convenience more and more every time he used it. It was the most Sung Jinwoo response that you could get from a situation like this.
Yeah, he's like, damn man, my powers are really cool.
That's pretty much it for all the extra stuff I missed. You can expect the next episode soon, so if you want to see that, then be sure to subscribe.
Curious. All the stuff around the freaking shout out AniNews, by the way. Link to their channels in the description. They're very close to breaking the next. Well, how many subscribers is he on now? He's on 685. He's gone up so many since the solo leveling video. I was really impressed. Yeah, the whole stuff around the freaking serial killer. I don't know. I don't know, obviously I'm an anime-only viewer, so it wouldn't have fit in the anime at all. But I'm trying to work out whether or not it fits in the manhwa. People who have read the manhwa, the light novel, the web novel, did it fit? Did it, like, work? Did it fit? Did it make sense? Did it feel out of place? Because it seems like something that would be bizarrely out of place. You get... And, so, let me try and word it like this. When people write stories... Sometimes people will add story. So how do I word it? As someone who's done a fair bit of writing and someone who reads all the time, when people write stories, you will have the main story. This doesn't happen all the time. The best writers in the world, this never happens to. You know, the George R.R. Martins, the Pierce Browns, this never happens to, right? You have your main story. This is your main story. And your main characters and all the stuff and everything that's going on in the book works for this. Maybe different ways, but it all works for this. And you have all of this all coming back in, everything connecting. But then every now and then you have this character. And this character, for some reason, just isn't in the main story and doesn't need to be and isn't part of it. But it's a character everyone likes, it's a character maybe the author likes, and they're like, shit, this character isn't really doing anything while this is going on. So this character needs to do something. So they give these characters almost like a filler story. It's a fucking nothing story. And the character just does this random thing. We'll go to the shops and come back and they'll have like a chapter where the character just goes explores a nearby town. And it's irrelevant. It's pointless information. And some people who are massive fans of the story might enjoy it anyway. We get to see more of the town. And some people might just not care about it. And they add these moments because they want to keep your interest in the character. They maybe want to build the character's humanity or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And they add these moments. But in general, even though these chapters and stories could be done well, they are only really added because the character isn't doing anything and needs to be doing something. So I do wonder, for you guys who have read it, because I haven't, with the serial killer thing, does it feel like that? Is it something that later is going to tie in? Or did it just feel like we've got Jeju Island going on, Jinwoo's not part of it, Jinwoo's our main boy, we need Jinwoo to be doing something, fuck it, serial killer story. Jinwoo can go hunt down a serial killer in the neighborhood and he'll be like trying to find out, you know? And they just threw that in. And that way we've got Jinwoo doing something cool, we've got the serial killer story, they've had Easter eggs in it and there, but it's never going to be brought up later on, it's completely irrelevant, and it was simply just there so Jinwoo was active in the story at the time. Is that what it is? Or is it not that and I'm misinterpreting it? That's what I'm wondering, because the serial killer arc feels bizarre to say the least. But yeah, I have to say, AniNews' videos continue to just absolutely crush. They are amazing. The extra information is always fantastic. Learning more about the Ant King, the Ant King's motivations, how the Ant King even became the Ant King and why it wanted to do that. And its relationship with the Queen and the consuming the other ants, the ants' cannibalism and the upgrade and even the Ant Queen's idea of conquering and creating this army to conquer. All of that is interesting information, which now we know makes like I feel like these really do add to the anime experience in like a nice way. Like if I went back and watched Solo Leveling again now, and when all this stuff is happening with the ant, I'm going to be watching those scenes with this in the back of my mind thinking this is why this character's doing it, and I think that's kind of cool. I'm always a big fan of things like that. It's literally like when you read a book and it like tells you character motivations and thoughts inside the book, and then when you watch the show you can't read people's minds, but you know as a reader what that character's thinking at that time. So yeah, pretty cool. Anyway, that's where my reaction is going to end. Shout out once again, AniNews. Link to the channel is in the description. And I hope you guys have been enjoying my cut content videos. We might only have 2 more of these from Solo Leveling. We'll have to see. We'll have to see what AniNews decides to throw our way. But yeah, maybe only 2 more. So yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed them. Thank you so much for supporting G.O.T. Extra. And that's it from me. Please like the video. Please subscribe for more. Maybe one day we'll get a plaque on that wall. We're doing really well. 54,000 subscribers last time I checked. Not bad. Anyway, thank you so much. And as always, my friends, you will see me in the next video.